Hi, everybody. John Fearing here with Live Large Universe. Welcome to another episode. Here we are with our good friend Brandon Gray from British Columbia. How are you doing, Brandon?
Good, John. How are you?
Good, good. Well, Brandon, I was just chatting with you here a couple of minutes ago, and you said that you spent your weekend doing a little fishing, a little yard work. It must have been a nice weather weekend up in British Columbia near you.
Yeah, snowpack's kind of settling in, spring cleaning settling in, gardening starting soon. So figured we'd spend it with the kids on their last weekend before getting back to school. They just had 2 weeks off, so it was good.
Perfect.
Warm, 20 degrees.
Yeah, here, Celsius, of course. Us poor Americans, we
Yes.
talk Fahrenheit down
Yeah.
here. So, yeah, it was up in the mountains yesterday. It was 50 degrees up there. It was like 60 degrees down in the valley
Oh,
where I live. But up in the mountains, it was over 50, and it was beautiful sunshine. We had probably one of our final club rides, snowmobile club rides up there, and we had 14 people show up. We did a little skills riding, did a little hill climbing, did some, lower meadow slash pond riding, however you want to call it, and everybody got a little excited about working on their skills, and I even got a little color. Right, it's hard to tell in the video
yeah.
today. My blues kind of overcast it, but I even got a little suntan over the weekend. And then yesterday I spent a little time, today actually detailing the Jeep. Got to Easter. Today is Easter, by the way. Happy Easter.
Yep. Happy Easter to you.
Yep, went to Easter Mass this morning, so that was awesome. But yeah, for anybody who's watching, please come in and let us know where you're watching from. I see Kevin Carella's here. I see our friends at Snowmobile Wisconsin is here. So everybody drop in the comments where you're watching from and what did you do for Easter? And if you don't know nothing too exciting, tell us what you ate for Easter lunch. Did you have ham? Did you have something else? Like, what did you have for Easter lunch? That'll be fun to see in the comments too. I had a friend who was asking me, like, what's a traditional Easter meal at your house? And I'm like, why do you want to know? Like, I don't know why he wants to know, but he asked. So today, believe it or not, I had crab for lunch. What did you have for lunch for Easter Sunday?
We actually had our Easter supper yesterday. We had a ham and some veggies, mashed potatoes, and then we had steak today. So
Very good, very
flipped it
good.
around a little bit.
Very good. All right, everybody, let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what you did for Easter. And while you're doing that, please share the show out because the way we get this show out and the information out to help other people be educated, be safe, is through sharing the show out. And if you share it out, you're going to be entered in to win this amazing backcountry first aid kit from Mountain Lab. So Mountain Lab sponsors the show. We're grateful for their partnership as well as all these other partners. Sponsored partners across the top of the screen here. And again, share the show out, and you'll be entered in to win this first aid kit. It's great for having in your tunnel bag. So. Well, Brandon, you and I got connected a little bit here, a few weeks ago when I put out the post to the universe saying, "Hey, everybody, I'm looking for some new guests," and you were one of the first people that reached out to me, and we got connected. And after I heard your story, I'm like, "Yeah, this is going to be an amazing show." So I'm excited to share it with everybody. So
Yeah, no, it seemed like a good way to actually do something with the story. So, no, it was good. It was kind of by coincidence, I feel. So, no, it was good.
the universe works in mysterious ways. As I'd like to believe
Yeah,
nothing is coincidence, that somehow we're meant to be here together. So that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah, let everybody get to know you a little bit. Where you're from, kind of what you do for work, and a little bit of your background so people can get to know you.
yeah, cool. I'm originally from Saskatchewan. Moved out in 2015. My wife and I, two boys, a 28-day-year-old son and a 13-month-old son. They're 11 months old or 11 months apart.
Wow.
So they'll both be 9 here in a couple weeks for almost a month, and yeah, it's fun. Keeps us busy, but yeah, moved out to Squamish, doing drywall, steel frame insulation, drywall. Was a subcontractor there. Came out here, started a business. Always had the passion to spend a lot of time in the backcountry, and my passion for riding grew each year. And then yeah, just kind of kept pursuing riding and trying to ride as much as possible, and yeah.
Very good, very good. So speaking of riding, let's go a little bit into your riding history. I think that's always fun for people to learn too. For me, for example, I'm from Minnesota. I've been riding my entire life. Like literally, I was sitting on my mom's lap when I was a little kid riding, and grew up in the Midwest. 2007 started mountain riding, and then transitioned out to Washington in 2012. So it's been quite a journey for me. How about you? Tell us a little bit about your journey in snowmobiling, what it's been for you.
Yeah, so I've been riding pretty well my whole life since I was about 8 years old. I think I started on a 380 John Deere, and
Very
then we
nice.
upgraded to a 440 Polaris at one point. Um, and then I think the sled that kind of set it off for me was the 2003 MXZ 800 with a beaver tail,
Very
and
nice.
do all the water skipping in the springtime and ride anywhere we wanted, and not really worry about banging it up with a little short track. And then moved out to BC and just kept riding. I actually did about 3 years of backcountry riding in Golden and Revelstoke,
Okay.
traveling from Saskatchewan with some buddies, and moved out to BC in 2015 and have been riding ever since. So I've been out here for just about 9 years in the spring, and was actually buried on my 12th year of backcountry riding.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you and I talked a little bit about during kind of your pre-interview of this week when we were chatting was the idea that, um, the way you worded it, and I love this phraseology of it because I think it's so true, is that you got lucky for 12 years, right? I mean, yeah, I
100%.
mean that really, really stuck with me when you shared that kind of perspective on, hey, I didn't take my first avalanche. We'll talk about it later. You'll talk more about your avalanche class, but I rode for that many years. I got lucky, and then I didn't get lucky, right? And so I think
Yeah.
that's the education here. If there's any takeaway from this whole episode, is the idea that I think a lot of us go out and we ride backcountry, and if we haven't taken the time to get our education or training yet, then we are to some degree getting lucky because until we've gone through that training and understand what's going on and how the snowpack works and how to read that avalanche forecast, to some degree, we're just, kind of playing a game of dice or a game of Russian roulette
Yeah.
or however you want to think about it, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah. So take us back to that story of the day of your avalanche. I mean, it's funny coincidences. It was Friday the 13th back in May
Friday,
of.
Friday the 13th. Yeah, and we were all making comments about it. Everybody's got your beacons on, stuff like that.
Yep.
Everyone's double checking, and we head out, and nice spring day, May. We're riding champagne powder on
Yeah.
the middle of May, which we're usually riding around Christmas or January type snow, and so we're just out there taking advantage of it.
Tell me who the group is that you're with. Is this a regular group of friends that you've always been with? Was it a newer group? Like, tell me about the
Yes,
group you're with.
so a couple of them were regular, a couple of them were kind of guys that I ride with sometimes, but it was just kind of a mash of acquaintances that were like all wanting to ride. So we kind of threw it all together as a group, and so a couple of us kind of ride together, a couple of them kind of ride together, but we all know each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a big group. So yeah, we were just all talking about who wanted to ride, and so we just kind of linked that group of five of us together,
Okay.
and that's what it was. And I think we got it to the trailhead about 8 o'clock. Drove up, Bluebird Day. Yeah, you can't ask for much better
Yeah.
for that type of year or
And
time
so
of year.
before before that day and before the accident, what was your normal kind of morning parking lot routine? Did you guys go through talking about the avalanche forecast at that time? Did you go through like a beacon check? Like, tell me what your routine was to kind of get ready for the ride that day. Because frankly, a lot of people don't do beacon checks and those kind of things too. That's why I ask is kind of, what can we learn from this experience of quote unquote, what went right, what went wrong as we go through this story. And I think that's a great place to start. So,
Yeah. So definitely guilty of not always doing that beacon check going out with the group, but we always are making sure that our beacons are on at that trailhead going out. Most trailheads do have a tracking, a beeper to see if you are tracking before you go out.
gotcha.
um, and but other than that, we're all very conscious of making sure. Actually, most of the guys I ride with, they won't ride with you if you're not wearing gear and you're not taking that conscious time to put it on. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I remember we all talked about it. We all checked our beacons. Um, we were just all ready to go. we knew the Avalanche risks were there for sure. I think the ratings were considerable. They weren't high anywhere, but they were considerable. I think moderate in the lower tree line. But yeah, no, we just went on the day, just thinking nonetheless like we do of every other day riding, and
Yeah.
and that was it, and headed up the trail.
Yep, lots of fresh snow. I remember seeing some of the pictures there. You guys had a lot of
Oh,
epic fresh
yeah.
snow, and you headed up the trail. And I think, if I remember right, it was the avalanche happened a little bit in the afternoon, right? And so, tell me about the morning of riding, or what time of day was the avalanche? Let's just cover that quick. So,
Yeah, the time of Avalanche was I think 12:05, so
okay,
definitely right at that switch of noon and
yeah,
afternoon sun starting to come up and actually settle on the snowpack.
yeah,
The morning we were riding a lot steeper stuff, mainly on the north side where things were pretty stable. We were seeing a lot of little sloughs and things like that, but nothing like that. No shooting cracks or womping or propagations off anything of it. So we just kind of thought more of some surface kind of
yeah,
problems, and not um, just kind of, yeah, kept together. We always ride with radios. If we go out in a big group, we always do a buddy system. So if we're 3, 4, 5 guys, we always break off in twos or threes.
yep,
So yeah, no, we were definitely riding some steeper stuff in the morning. Just kind of made our way, I guess, on the northern side of the mountain up into higher alpine, and then kind of traverse back onto the glacier. And what we were doing is doing the Brandywine up Metal Dome, down Metal Dome, then down Brandywine Bowl, up Brandywine Eschute, around the glacier, down to Chocolate Bowl, and then back to the truck.
gotcha,
And so that point of where we stopped, where we were heading out, I think we were probably 80% of our journey complete.
okay,
And heading out, we all got lots of things to do during the day. So we're usually not the type of guys that go out and ride for 8-10 hours a day. We ride a lot and just try to get out at those little times that we can. So yeah, I just remember we were coming back into the Mount Cayley lookout area, and we dropped down into one bowl that takes you around to the backside of Mount Fee, which we weren't going. But I remember thinking it was pretty weird that guys in our group were actually riding down there, because to me it looked quite steep, and it is solar aspect and known to slide. So from there we kind of discussed a little bit. We went up. I remember the 5 of us went up. I remember 2 or 3 of them parking on the hill, and we used we're in a little bowl, and we got maybe about a 80-meter knob. Actually, it's in the photo. It's nothing big at all, like nothing that we would have expect to
yeah,
be sliding. And we're doing little downturns, reentries, whatever. And I go on my third one, and as I'm going straight up it, Roth is going to connect with the other guys that are sitting on the Mount Cayley lookout, so where they're parked, kind of watching everything go down. And I remember going up, and I just remember seeing from the corner of my eye, he triggers it as he's riding over to the other group.
oh wow,
And it's probably about 80 meters from me on my right, and it propagates 150-meter across right over top of me.
wow,
And I remember like right over me, I remember being about a meter and a half, and I was going straight up 20 meters from the fracture. And the first reaction I had was to turn around. I didn't think about my airbag, which is right there, easy
yeah,
to deploy. I've just seen a lot of videos where guys are caught when they're facing down, and it seems to be they're a little bit more of a flotation device. Plus, they're higher on the snowpack as it's coming down. So
yeah,
to me, the first reaction I thought was get facing downhill and not up it. So as soon as I did that maneuver to do the turn, and I got basically barnside with it, it swept me off. and I went over on the opposite side of the slide as the sled, and the machine came on me. And I actually remembered we weren't rolling, we were sliding down the hill together. And for probably the first 30 meters, the machine was on top of me.
Wow.
And that was the first little bit of panic kind of setting in, because I couldn't get the machine off me, and I had to force a lot to actually even just to push that machine. And once I did get that off, I think we maybe only slid for another maybe 15 meters before I stopped. Somehow I stayed on my side with my back against the hill behind me, and I slid down without rolling the whole time. And so that's the first thing I think that really helped me out, is because I didn't have my helmet full of snow.
Gotcha.
And I had my arm facing straight up, I remember, and I'm laying completely sideways like a board. And from there, I think I'm waving to my friends, because I can actually wave a little bit on my arm.
Okay.
And I can't see daylight, but because I can move my arm enough, snow's falling in. So I'm trying not to move, but I'm trying to, be noticeable. And, time goes by, and I'm like, okay, maybe they don't see me. This is weird. Okay. Cause I probably about a minute and a half in from there, and I know they're right there, and maybe another minute goes by, and this is where things really start taking the turn in your head, because you're instantly, like, you're thinking about everything, everybody you care and that you love, and anything else, it disappears. It means absolutely nothing. And
Yeah.
you're helpless in the situation. You have no control of how it's going to end out for you. It's absolutely a terrifying feeling, for sure. From there, I remember, maybe another 30 seconds to 45 seconds is going by, and I can definitely feel that I'm, definitely starting to lose some consciousness. And then I feel a probe in my neck.
Wow.
Out of all places, I feel the probe through my suit on the neck, and it's like, yes, okay, now it's like, this is everything. The mood, it just instantly changes, because now they found you. You know that you're with a good group, and now it's the battles again with me to just hang on as long as I can. From there, I didn't, still didn't really know how deep I was, and till probably maybe another minute goes by of that probe strike, and then I remember one grabbing my hand. And then that's when things got even better, because I'm like, they're there, they're closer. And as they even get even closer, I think I remember Matt. This is Matt Copan just yelling, "You're going home to your boys, buddy. You're going home to your boys." Like, I'll never forget it. It was just truly amazing. One of them's in my mouth, trying to get all the snow out, and I'm yelling, I'm okay, I'm okay. But I remember the hand still kind of trying to dig in, but whatever. Like, it was.
Did you bite his fingers? No, just kidding.
Well, rumor has it, because there is a cut finger.
Oh wow.
They don't know if I bit the finger or if it was the shovel, but I'm pretty sure it was the shovel, because I would have remembered biting a finger. But yeah, it was emotional. Each step that they got closer and closer to me, it was just that much closer to know that these, like, they're getting me out. And that was just the best feeling ever, because you lose that for a little bit. You lose that hope that that they're getting you out in time. So I just remember getting up, standing up, and them pushing me down and not letting me dig. I'm looking for my sled, and my sled's gone.
Wow.
And then I remember just seeing just a little tip, just the tip of the handlebar sticking out.
Wow. And
then it's right in front of me. And that's where everything really started to sink in, because I realized, like, if I couldn't have got that off of me, they would have been digging out the sled first before me. And I wouldn't have made that. Plus, having that machine on top of you it's yeah, I don't know. That's there's many things that I
Yeah.
look back on all the time and realize, well, what if this and what if that? And
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who believe that if it's your time, it's your time, and if it's not, it's not, right? And
yeah,
so, this obviously wasn't your time to go, to the wild beyond. Um, and so, let's reflect back a little bit on kind of what led up to this and kind of this part of the story, and kind of, there's a lot of things that went right, right? Like you had a good, capable riding group. You guys all sound like you all had Avalanche equipment. It sounds like beacon shovel probes everybody have, even airbags. The idea of, and this is really, really common, is the idea that you didn't even think, it didn't even dawn on you to pull your airbag, right? Like whether it
no,
was on your mind or not, whatever, I think there's that immediate reaction of like, holy smokes, what's going on? And I find this to be more and more common as I hear stories. And, people ask all the time, like, well, what should I get? Avalanche safety gear rise, right? And I'm like, the standard answer is beacon, shovel, probe, which are the three things that literally
yeah,
saved your life. And the Avalanche airbag I look at, and I think a lot of professionals do, is like it's a great tool. It's effective and it works when it works, right? And it's like, if you can fit it in your budget and it's there. I mean, there was no downside of having it, right? Like, I mean, if it was on your
absolutely not.
right, but the bottom line is like the reality is, are you going to be with it enough to pull the trigger and actually there? So in your
Yeah,
case, had you, and here's another thing that I heard in your story too that I think is worth mentioning is, and again, it's your instincts kick in, and I think that's something that's important for everybody to say. It's like it's easy to sit, be a armchair quarterback, they call it, right? And sit here and think in your mind like, well, I would have done this. Like, you don't know what you would have done. Like I've talked about this all the
no,
time in my shows of, people getting into an emergency situation of some kind. There's three responses that people have. It's fight, flight, or freeze, right? And based on what you described, I would say your emotions or your body took into a fight mode, right? Like you turned into a, I'm getting out of here, I'm turning around and I'm gonna go, and then you're fighting to get the sled out. So you were in this fight mode all the way down to get in there. Like, you didn't necessarily just freeze, but you also, it was the fight, flight, or freeze, right? It's like you tried to flight, you tried to get out of there. But the bottom line is you weren't conscious enough to pull that airbag.
it happens too fast.
Yeah, just it
Wait,
happens too fast. And then the other thing is that, knowing what we know now about Avalanche is that if you would have tried to keep going straight up and ride up the Avalanche, the farther you are above the Avalanche on the Avalanche, the less likely you're going to get buried under it, right? And so turning out and being under it probably was one of those moments too that you can look back and say, had I done this differently, maybe I wouldn't have even been buried. But there's no way to know. Like, in hindsight's 2020 and, you just don't know.
yeah. Oh, 100% the maneuver of me turning was the full reason why I was buried that deep.
Yeah,
Now, I may not saying that I wouldn't have been buried,
exactly.
but almost a 2 meter burial on that slope. I think we kind of classify it as about a size 1.5
Okay.
slide. So in regards, it's a pretty big slide, and if it can deposit 6, 7, 8 feet of snow at the bottom,
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to have a 2 meter burial. But it's the fact that I was pushed down by the machine so far. So yeah, there's always that thought in my mind of what would have happened if I would have just kept going up, or had I just pulled the bag and carried
Yeah.
going up. But at the same time, it's I this was a pretty good slope to be buried on. It was a good group to have with me to be buried with.
Yeah.
There's so many different things for sure that favored that day for sure. And and back to the airbag thing. If I've always ridden with very conscious guys about avalanches. We are always checking Avalanche Canada. We were always deciding where we would ride the next day, either the very night before or that morning. And it would always be based off of many factors. And the two biggest ones were visibility and avalanche conditions,
Yeah.
and where were we traversing to get to where we wanted to be. And from there, it's, I've always just thought, like I knew a lot, and I did, but you never know enough, and not even close to thinking enough if you haven't even done a level 1. to
Yeah,
begin with,
exactly. Yep.
because the level one just has it has so many things in there that just point you into a direction of being more aware,
Yeah.
how to actually use your beacon, step calibrate it, etc. But with the backpack, had I known where to spend my money when I was investing into all this gear, I would invest in a level one over an Avalanche airbag any day. And I
1000%.
I would
Yeah.
I would encourage anybody to invest in a level one before an airbag any day,
Yeah.
because it's just that much more knowledge. The
Well, you
airbag
think
is
about
a
it, yeah, the money is, it's actually less money for a level one class in most cases. Like
yep,
an airbag, you're going to drop US dollars, $1,000, probably 1,500 or more for you guys out in
15.
Canada.
So you can
Yep.
do a one and a level two here
Yeah.
through
For the same amount of
our
money.
club with the same amount, actually less.
Yep.
You do a
Exactly.
one, a two, and do a refresher.
And I agree with
And
you.
I,
And
I think that alone will teach you how to never have to use that airbag.
exactly my point
And
too. Yeah. Yeah.
not saying you shouldn't ride with an airbag. You absolutely should ride with an airbag. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
great sense, extra buffer. And if you do get buried, you do have a little bit of oxygen, I guess. But it's the education part of it is a much more important factor.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, if I was riding with four other dudes that all had airbags but no avalanche training, I wouldn't be alive today.
Oh,
But
exactly.
because they have avalanche training, I'm here, and so that
Yeah.
is definitely the big one for me.
So do you feel like the ride that day of your avalanche, knowing what you know now about avalanche training, and you've gone through it, and we're going to get into this in a little bit here about you going actually into becoming an avalanche instructor, right? And knowing what you know today, what would you have done differently that day that could have potentially, changed the results of getting caught in an avalanche? Like how do you think you would handle that day differently in hindsight now with the education that you have today?
We wouldn't have been on that slope. We would have probably done a little bit more slope testing as well too, and
Mm,
actually checked out what the snow was actually doing that day.
yeah.
And I just think more so the seeing of things happening that day, we were already in alert, and we were watching the skier set quite large sloughs off and stuff like that. And, here we're talking about a lot of high frequency stuff. So to us, we just figured, well, if it's sliding there, it's probably sliding there because of high frequency and it's steep and etc. But from there, for sure, I would have looked at that hill a lot differently. Like learning my first avalanche course, it was just like, okay, we combined a solar aspect slope with with a new storm with an outtake outflow, which cross loaded the slope opposite of how it's generally loaded.
Yeah.
So it actually loaded the slope really nice, just the way you want to see it,
For an avalanche.
where you normally always have that bad bed surface of being windward.
Yeah.
So there's and not that I didn't know my aspects correct, somewhat decent before the avalanche training. It's just I would have put a lot more into perspective and actually looked at that and decide, we would have thought about, is that the right one to try our reentries, or should we go somewhere and try something that's, a little bit more north or west facing? And
Yeah.
it was just really, it didn't look like the hill that was going to slide.
Yeah.
And thinking back to it, we just combined basically all of the perfect conditions and aspects together for a touchy trigger, something
Yeah.
that doesn't trigger naturally on its own too much, but if
Yeah.
you hit it in the right spot, it goes. And
Yeah.
the average 35 33 degrees, we just kind of combined a lot of that perfect stuff together on the wrong day.
Yeah. That's crazy. So going back to the story of, your friends just dug you up, you're kind of like in that moment of high five, you're celebrating. Was there anything else that's important for the rest of that day? Like, were you physically okay enough to just get back on your sled and ride once you dug it up? I mean, how long did it take to dig your sled out? And then let's talk about
It,
what a snowmobile that's been an avalanche is like. How much did you have to go in and clean out the clutches and the suspension and everything else? Let's talk about that for a minute.
I think it took us almost 40 minutes to dig the sled out. And
Okay.
that's where it was like really like surreal for us, because like, and everybody's gassed, but like it also goes to show what you can do in that moment of adrenaline as well, because they moved a lot of snow really really fast. And I even today I'm always trying to like look back and envision them, just going at that, because it impresses me, and it impresses a lot of people to, see the video and be like, you were in a 2 meter pit and you were like 4 minutes, like this doesn't even sound right. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. But yeah, no, I was definitely, I think if you watch a video you'll hear me saying we're digging out my snow. Like
Yeah.
I'm just coming back into conscious, like kind of a conscious state of my own mind, I guess, where like I'm not seeing stars anymore. The adrenaline's kind of starting to wear off. I think I was probably less than a minute away from losing consciousness and then going into hypoxia or whatever. So I
Yeah.
think I think everything just worked out really really well.
So I'm just so you know too, I did bring in one of the photos, the photo that you had kind of written all over, where it says like what the hill was and the trigger. Like I
Yeah,
just want everybody to see this hill. Like I mean this, and I'll actually put it over on my side so you can kind of people can see. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit more so you can talk about it. But so just imagine like I'm seeing somebody with a Highmark backpack on. Is that one of your buddies, right? Sitting on the sled. And then off in the distance was the hill, the fracture. You can see the fracture line at the top of the hill.
that's
And
that's me in the with the blue high mark.
yeah, yeah, that's you.
That's me.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that was after the accident, right?
I didn't even realize Rafa got those till after. That's me sitting and reminiscing.
Yeah. And so you're
Yeah,
showing like the fracture line up above, and it wasn't. I mean, looking at it, I mean, it's hard to tell how far away you are from the slide at that. But like, how far away were you? Like 100
we're,
meters? Like,
we're about 150 meters from
okay,
where
so
we're
it's a
taking the
little ways
picture.
away. So it's a pretty good size hill then.
Yeah,
In the showing the burial spot and the trigger point, and you can see where the trigger point was, where your buddy had ridden the sled line and stuff too and stuff.
where
So
he comes out.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, but you're right. It's like it doesn't look like an overly crazy aggressive hill, but
no,
it just goes to show you like what things can happen and what can come out of that. So
yeah, it was just simply a cross-loaded wind slab on a
yeah,
bad bed surface. That's usually a wind strip kind
yep,
of slope,
yep,
right? So
absolutely.
maybe
All right,
only 20% of the time we're actually loading that way. So
yeah. And so you got the sled dug out. Took 40 minutes, and then what did the
yeah,
rest of the day look like? I mean, the sled obviously started. Did you guys just straight back to the trucks, and then what was the
right
rest of your day look like?
right down to the trucks. So from there we had one more quite an aggressive avalanche path to drive out from, called Avalanche Alley and Chocolate Bowl.
I know it well.
Uh, but from there it was I think a little bit of PSTD kicking in, and I think I got back to the truck about 1 o'clock. Got home, and this day was very particular for me, actually, like that I'll never forget for many reasons, just because my oldest son is sitting at home ready to go on the mountain. We had talked the night before and the morning leaving about how we're going to go up and spend some time at the cabin. So literally we got down to the trucks, drove home. Got home, I spent about an hour hugging the wife, talking about everything with her. Didn't want to tell her over the phone. I wanted to tell her when I got home. And
Yeah,
like it was just weird, because like at first, like she didn't really know what to think, and like it still sinks into her. And like I think it sinks in the most when she hears when other people do pass away
yeah,
in these accidents. And I think that's when it hits her the most.
yeah,
So spend some time with her and the kids. And Ethan still wanted to go riding. And
Yeah.
so we went. We went up, we went to the cabin, we went up to just have a couple hot dogs and shovel off the decks, do our kind of volunteer time and just get out. And so one of those photos where I'm in there and I'm taking a selfie with Ethan in the background, that's the same day. So pretty casual day after,
Yeah.
but I felt crushed for a week. For about a week, I could feel it everywhere, where it just you could just feel a weird sensation across my whole body that I could definitely feel that there was about a week prior there was a ton of snow on me, right? So,
Yeah.
but other than that, it no trauma,
Yeah.
no
Do,
torn ligaments, nothing.
yeah.
Like just
Do you have a sense for how long you were under the snow total? Like any idea?
we think 4 minutes.
Okay.
We kind
That's
of
pretty
estimate
good.
about 4 minutes. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so I think most people know by now, but if not, like I mean, a lot of people if you're under for more than 5 minutes, there's a likelihood you're going to lose consciousness.
yeah.
Sounds like you didn't, right? Like you maybe were a little bit
No.
kind of on the edge, but you were conscious the whole time and you could feel the probe strike and everything crazy. And then, at 10 minutes, your chances to go down dramatically, at that point. And then at 15 minutes, it's almost unlikely you're going to come back at all. And we have one person watching. I think I told you about this in the show. Billy Siebert. He was the guy that I had interviewed here a couple hours show a while back. He's here watching again tonight, and in the comments, kind of encouraging you, for sharing your story. But he was under for about 20 minutes, and
Yeah.
somehow he survived, and it's a miracle completely. And
Well,
same,
good on you, buddy. That's
yeah,
amazing. It's
yeah. Yep. Yep. He actually says here, he says, I felt that pressure for about a week also. So he kind of had a similar
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
You know,
It's a weird sensation, but you know it. You're like that you've just been semi crushed.
yeah.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Yeah, it was definitely really weird riding after too.
Yeah.
I think I rode 4 more days, so a
Okay.
total of 70 days or 69 days
Wow.
that year. I was buried on my 65th day of riding, and I remember the one day riding with pretty well the same group again,
Yeah.
and we're on our local mountain. We'll call it our more safe mountain, and I just remember the fog setting in, and then having to come back out in the fog and up hills that were steeper than what just buried me.
Yeah. Little panic.
And
Little
that
panic,
was
right?
it was really gut wrenching because at that very time I was wondering what the next season would be like for me, and whether I would even be excited again when fall came.
Yeah.
So that was the first little kind of gut scare for me,
Yeah.
and whether I would actually like carry on with the passion as much as I do, and
Yeah.
whether I think one of the biggest things too is you got to put your family through that more. Like they know that I'm still out there riding, and as much as I like, ever did, and if not more. And so there's a lot of factors that play at that decision to
Yeah.
want to keep going and do what I do. So
Yeah. Well, this accident apparently inspired you to go get Avalanche training afterwards. Was that the next season then, or when did you get your first, Avalanche
yeah,
training after that? So,
so I was a director. I'm a director for the Black Dust Snowmobile Club in Squamish here, and we have always been known to throw some of the best AST courses, so avalanche safety training courses, across the country. And so from there, I figured gonna get involved, kind of get that knowledge, expand the knowledge. I knew I wanted to do a level 1 and a level 2, and I sign up, and I remember meeting Nico on my first AST1 course. It's a level 1, and this was, I want to say, January 8th last not this year, but last year of 2023.
okay.
And we didn't even get started yet, and we had a good chat. I met Nico, and Tony, the president, kind of busted out the story for me and said, like, this guy's he's been 6 feet under. And so
Yeah.
Nico, oh, you have.
Yeah. Tell us quick who Nico
And
is. I don't think we connected the dots for
yeah,
everybody.
so Nico Weiss is the Avalanche instructor I work under.
Gotcha.
Him as well as Rob Hanna and Sari and Rob Hanna. They all live on the island, and they come over here to train. And so Nico's been doing it since 1986. He actually used to be a pro skateboarder at one point, and
Okay.
then pursued into snowboarding. Seen a big avalanche take out a whole T-bar, and knew that he wanted to be an avalanche instructor from there. And won't get into that story, but anyways, he then kind of knew that sledding would be an issue, so he got into a sled specific AST course. He traveled the US actually and trained almost 10,000 students in the US before finishing his career up here in Canada.
Nice.
But yeah, anyways, so with Nico, I just remember Tony busting out the story and saying I was 6 feet under. And from there, he was like, "Oh, so you're my test. How do you say? You're my test dummy for science." And from there, it was kind of a good hit off. And before we even started, he brought to light that he was looking for somebody to help him and join him, and he wanted to do it for another 5 more years before he retired, and he would love it if I would like to join him for the last 5 years. And it was just an instant yes.
Yeah.
Not a problem. I knew where he was going, and I knew that this was something I wanted to do, and so I said yes, and here we are. We're just about 2 years in, and 14 courses done, almost 200 students trained, and I could never been happier with the decision. It's been one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's the networking, meeting new people. It's unbelievable,
So
the experience.
What do you feel like it's a deeper question, so think about this, is like what specifically motivated you to want to go teach and train others? Is it to, a couple examples would be like, is it to avoid others having to go through what you've been through? Like, what part of it is it? Something part of your healing process? Like, just because it's not uncommon, right? Like, I think what you're experiencing is a very consistent story that I hear, where someone with a lot of avalanche instructors, that was what triggered them to go get avalanche training, right, and stuff. And so for you, what do you feel like was that kind of that mechanism or that specific thing that triggered you to take that next step to go get training, and then ultimately
for me it was the people involved and wanting to educate, and also recognizing that there is a major downfall with snowmobiling and how people get educated in this sport. And for me, it's helping out as many people to not go through that or to not live that experience is my goal. And really for me, I think where it really became a big passion for me is when my son started doing it with us. And so my son, who will be 10 here this spring, he's done 5 AST1 level 1 courses with us. Nice. And for me, that's what really, I think, established that I wanted to chase it as a career, is seeing that he was as passionate as I am. Nice. And he's not just passionate about the riding. He's passionate about being with people like I am. He's passionate about just the whole industry all together. And so for me, it was really cool to be able to realize that I can help people, help educate people, and I can also do it with the people that I love. And that was really the turning point for me to decide that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I think really at the start it was definitely that factor of wanting to help. We hear of it all the time. We've lost a lot of people. Yeah. We've lost a lot of good people in this industry to avalanches. And
well, And something I
It's not
think,
that they're not educated either or
yeah.
trained either, and that's not the subject. But just if we can help as many people get that education early on, is just kind of what my goal is.
Yeah. I know when Billy shared his story about his avalanche, I know one of the things that he vocalized was the idea of, he felt like he was given a second, lease at life, if you
Yeah,
will.
100%.
And he wanted to know that he was going to make the best of that, right? And I think there's a little bit of that probably going on with you too, where you want to help other people, you want to make a difference, you're thankful for whatever reason you were saved, and that you want to pass that and pay it forward to some degree, right? So,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
Like it's something beyond you, and that's what's cool about it. It's
Well, to some degree, I
something
think
that's
that I my words is that's the meaning of life. It's like at the point that we can figure out a way, and that's frankly one of the reasons I do this show, right? It's like, why do I get on here every week or every other week to do this show? It's like this idea of like serving others and helping others, and to be able to really make a difference in the world and know that we're on a mission. And it gives me personal joy and happiness to be able to help you tell your story, right? Like, you're here telling your story, and I've created this platform for you to be able to do that, and we're helping so many people by being able to do that, right? And it's super fulfilling, and it gives, to me, that's the meaning of life, is like, if we're here to serve each other, is really what it comes down to. So
yeah.
yeah. And so in your avalanche education that went through your training, you're becoming an instructor, somehow you stumbled into this little recipe for helping youth get in. I think your kid has a lot to do with that, right? But tell us a little bit about like what you guys have been doing specifically with youth in the avalanche education and the avalanche safety fund that you're leveraging for that. Let's go into that.
Yeah, so this is actually something new that we're doing this year, and we haven't really gone that public with it, which is you know which I think this is a great way of doing it. But at the same time, for us, it's all about, I think, spreading as much avalanche awareness to as many people as we possibly can. But for us, what we've really found a good demographic in is families, and we've had some families do it together, and it really inspired us.
Yeah.
And so with that, we created a fund, and the fund is it's dedicated for another assistant that used to help Nico, and together they've trained thousands of students across BC. And he actually tragically lost his life a few years ago, and so that's been a big hole that Nico has been living with, and he misses him dearly. And so the assistant that Nico lost was Todd Eberts, and some listening may have actually know of the name. He was quite a big name here, touched a lot of people, did a lot in the industry when it comes to avalanche and backcountry safety. And
Yeah.
I never got the privilege to actually meet Todd, but a lot of people talk about him in our club.
This guy.
So,
This guy got to
and
meet
you
him.
did, and
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
that's cool.
it's crazy coincidence, but Todd Eberts, and if I had to give a rough guess, it was probably in the neighborhood of 20. I know I was not riding a 2013 model year sled, and so whether it was brand new or a couple years old, I don't know, but it was in that 2013 to 2015 window that I was up riding with friends up in British Columbia. It was probably right around that first of the sometime in April, May, so it was probably that same time of the year, and we were riding Brandywine, and just ran into Todd and another guy. I don't remember the other guy's name. It was like Chris, maybe was the other guy's name. And we ended up riding with them that day and had a great day at the end of the day. And after that, we stayed in touch on Facebook. And that's when I really got
Yeah,
to learn what Todd was about, and that he got into avalanche education, and again, was a big advocate for safe sledding in the British Columbia area up there where you guys are at.
yeah,
And so to hear this story come back, it's kind of a pretty cool connection and story to hear that he has a way of influencing what you're doing as well too. And everybody who gets involved, to some degree, your legacy lives on. So
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we started a fund dedicated to him. So the Todd Memorial Fund, and it's dedicated to spreading avalanche awareness and safety across Sea to Sky corridor, and
yeah.
hopefully across BC, and then eventually further on. But so right now, the biggest thing we're trying to do is get as many youths through the door for free as possible. And by doing so, we do it by a guardian, a company guardian paying for their own ticket, and then we'll run their youth through the program for free, which is what a $599 ticket
Yeah.
certificate. But so for us, for me, I think if we can target a younger demographic now and train as many people now, then I think we're going to get rid of a lot of the what you don't know will hurt you
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of stigma in the industry. And I feel like there's a lot of people riding that think that they have a lot of good experience, and they probably do. And if you're not taking the time to get avalanche education, I think it's just a matter of time before you or someone you love or your friends or someone is going to experience it. If you're avid riders,
Yeah.
I feel like it's just a matter of time, not
Well,
if it's going to happen.
and something that I think you probably both feel is obvious, but I want to say it out loud just to make sure everybody's thinking about it the right way is, for the audience that's watching is, when we talk about avalanche education really making a difference, it really is two pieces of it, right? It's like part of it is the idea that you're going to be able to read and interpret the information you're getting. You're going to understand what to do with that information and help ultimately make better decisions for terrain management. And your ultimate goal, most of it, probably 80% of it, is all about avoidance, right? Like not putting yourself in a position to where you're in an avalanche. Like that's the first step of it, right? And then even professionals can get caught in avalanches and get tricked and caught, right?
100%.
And so
Yeah.
that's where this like final, call it the final 20%. Again, I'm making up these percentages, statistics sound important, so I make them up, right? Here we go. But like, there's a smaller part of it, but it's the ability to
Yeah.
rescue your partner, because if you've gone through the avalanche training, not only learning all of the preventive measures, but it's also of preparing you for like when the crap does hit the fan, that you and your team are ready to jump into action, right? And other little
I
subtle,
agree.
yeah, little subtle things like one person on the hill at a time is part of that avalanche training, right? And like
Yeah.
how many times do we all go out in the backcountry and we see multiple people on the hill at a given time, right? And like I'll be honest with you, like even me and my group, even this Saturday, like you fall into it a little bit. Like we talk about it at the beginning of the day, and all of a sudden somebody gets stuck and needs help, and before you know it, everybody's got a feeling of it being kind of safe, and so we find ourselves two or three at a time on a avalanche slope. We felt like the risk wasn't really high, otherwise we would have been even more safe there too. But like in hindsight, I can even reflect back on as recent as yesterday, like I was on the slope with other people at a time when in hindsight I probably shouldn't have been. Everything worked out fine this time and we were all ready for something if something did happen. But at the end of the day, it's why we talk about this all the time, is because it's really easy to forget about those moments that we put ourselves on the mountain, because we get into the moment and it's the stoke is high, the adrenaline's going, we're having fun, and frankly, we all kind of lose our mind out there. And so it really does pay to kind of just keep repeating ourselves and keep reminding ourselves of these issues. So,
Complacency, 100%.
yep.
You just you get yeah. And I you hear a lot of stories where people ride the same zone for 10 years, or I've ridden here 20 times and I've never seen it slide, so it doesn't slide. And
Yeah.
and then sometimes those are the stories that end up being you know not good, good ending stories. And
Yeah.
I think it's just like you get complacent with your zone, your territory, and it's just combining, like my situation, the wrong conditions with the wrong day, the wrong time,
Yep.
the wrong aspect. It's
Yeah.
combining so many things together, and if you ride a lot, you're bound to one day connect all those dots, I
Well,
think.
it's
And
like a lifetime of driving. Like, I mean, there's very few people that
yeah.
go through their entire lifetime of driving without some kind of a car accident. Like, it's almost inevitable. It's going to happen at some point in time, right? So,
Yeah. I know people that have been caught in more than one avalanche. They've been caught in two avalanches here in the
that's
corridor.
crazy.
And it's yeah, so I mean it's crazy. And I've seen a lot. I've easily watched, at least 30 slides in my day that are big enough to bury somebody and kill
Yeah.
somebody. And
Yeah.
I've seen a couple that are not even rescue missions. They're more like retrievals. And
Yeah.
it's just I think you get into a place and yeah, you just get
Yeah.
complacent.
Well, hence the reason we're here, Brandon. So thank you for sharing your story. It's amazing that you're able and willing to kind of get on here, share your story, and to try to help others, both through the training that you're providing as an Avalanche instructor, as well as now sharing your story just over the interweb, right? So here we are. Let us talk a little bit about like maybe somebody along the way that you want to just give a shout out to or some thank yous to, right? Whether it be the crew that rescued you, if you want to give them a shout out, or anybody else along the way, that kind of thing too. And then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So
Yeah, no, definitely want to give a shout out definitely to my lovely wife Danielle. She's the biggest rock in my life, and to allow me to pursue the passion the way that I do is pretty extraordinary, and yeah. But other than that, Black Test Snowmobile Club, really like to give a big shout out to them. Truly amazing people that operate this club. I'm a new director, and it's been amazing. It's always good to see when people come together and want to keep something like a snowmobile club going together. It's a bunch of volunteers, and you get to really know these people. So definitely a big shout out to them and for what they do. No Limits Motorsports, they're always really really good at keeping me on the snow and helping me out when I need some help to get back on the snow and have some avalanche courses coming up. So they've been pretty good that way. And then definitely the fellows that help me out. So we've got Pi MK, Matt Copan, Raf Mick, and um, Tom Sepik. And I mean, without those guys, I wouldn't be here today.
amen.
Even with a couple of them, I'd probably still be here today. That's just it's just I definitely surrounding yourself with a good group of riding partners is the best thing you can do in the backcountry.
Yep, absolutely.
The best investment is just being educated and riding with other people that are educated. Some of the tools that you ride with are for your partners as well, like your probe and things like that. They're not just for you. So
Amen.
you got to know how to use that stuff.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, if you as the audience here, if you're not inspired yet to go get avalanche training because you think it's, you don't need it or whatever, like think about it this way, it's not for you. It's for the people that you
No.
ride with. And if the people you ride with are people you care about, which most of us do, then you're getting it for them. And like if something goes wrong, you're there to rescue them, and vice versa. Like if you're riding with people who refuse to go get avalanche training, that says something about how much they care about you, right? It's like if they don't care enough to go get training, and think about it. Like we're all riding snowmobiles that are worth at least thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars at this point in time. We're riding gear, our bibs, our helmets, our beer, the avalanche bags, everything like that's there. It's like it's hundreds and more thousands of dollars that we're spending to be able to be on the snow, and yet we're afraid to spend, $599 Canadian, $500 US on an avalanche class. I think our priorities are out of line right at that point in time. And so we really need to evaluate what we're doing and whether we're being part of the solution of making sure the backcountry is a safer place for everybody to go make every trip a round trip, right? So
Yeah.
awesome.
I think just more people need to know that the education is the big factor.
Absolutely.
Like you go to a dealer and they sell you a sled and you ask what kind of gear you need, and they sell you all the safety gear that you can buy, but it's useless if you don't know how to use it well.
All right, final chance, Brandon, for any final words, and we're going to wrap it up. So, any final thoughts?
No, I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's been great, and it's the first time I've really actually opened up and talked about it anytime public, so it's kind of a little weird but good at the same time, and
kind of part of the healing process is my understanding as well.
It is.
So yep,
it is because it was good.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, if you haven't already and you're watching it to this point in the show, please, please, please share the show out. It's a really important story. It's going to help a lot of people out. And by entering the contest, I've got the backcountry first aid kit that you'll be entered in to win if you help share this out. And, especially here on Easter Sunday when we're recording this, I want to say to everybody, like I do every week, God bless you. and live large. Live life to the fullest, make the most of every day, and make a difference to others like Brandon did tonight. So, all right, everybody, have a great
Awesome.
night. Bye.
Thanks. Cheers, guys.